Chaos Ensuming TCG Complete Rulebook and Seder Concourse Analysis. Part 1. The Chaos Ensuming TCG Official Rulebook, Revised Beta 3.4. Welcome to Chaos Ensuming. This rulebook provides a complete guide to the game, starting with the fundamental concepts and progressing to more complex rules and mechanics. Chapter 1. Getting Started, the Absolute Basics. This chapter covers what you need to know to prepare for and begin a game of Chaos Ensuming. 1.1. What you need to play. To play Chaos Ensuming, each player needs a primary deck. Depending on the game mode and chosen variants, you might also use an extra deck and a side deck. 1.2. The goal of the game. The primary objective in Chaos Ensuming is to reduce your opponent's life to 0. Your starting life points vary based on the chosen game mode, 5,000 in casual mode and 10,000 in standard mode. 1.3 Card types. There are various types of cards you'll play with, each serving a unique purpose. And creatures. These are your primary combatants. They have ATK attack and def defense values, and are used to attack your opponent's creatures or their life directly. And spells. These cards provide various effects that can support your creatures, hinder your opponent, or alter the game state. And souls. This is a card kind. When a creature card is in your grave zone or exile zone, it is considered a soul. And torments. This is a special card kind. Torments are unique in that they are considered both a creature and a spell simultaneously. They are played into the normal zone's main field, blood realm, spell zone like other cards, but their dual nature affects how certain rules or card effects interact with them. 1.4. Your play area, the realm and zones. Each player has their own realm, which is their designated play area. Your realm is organized into specific areas called zones. Understanding these zones is crucial for knowing where to play cards and where cards go when effects occur. Hand zone, cards you draw from your deck zone are kept here, hidden from your opponent. At the end of your turn, you are limited to a maximum of 7 cards in your hand zone. If you have more, you must discard cards until you reach the limit. If a creature is discarded this way, it is referred to as descent. Deck zone, your primary deck is placed here face down. This is where you draw cards from throughout the game. Grave zone, this zone serves as your discard pile for cards that are destroyed, used, or sent from play. It is typically positioned in front of your deck zone. When a creature card is in your grave zone, it is considered a soul. Active playing field, this is the core area of your realm where most active gameplay occurs. Each portion of the active playing field has a maximum capacity of 7 cards. 1. Spell zone. This area is primarily designated for your spell cards. It has a maximum capacity of 7 cards. 2. Main field. This is the principal arena for your creature cards and where combat primarily takes place. It has a maximum capacity of 7 cards. Non-blood creatures are commonly played and located in this field. 3. Blood realm. This is a specialized area specifically reserved for your blood attribute creatures. It also has a maximum capacity of 7 cards. Blood creatures are commonly played and located in this realm. Auxiliary zones. 1. Extra deck zone. If you are playing a game mode that utilizes an extra deck, for certain types of unique conjuring, such as forsake creatures, those cards are kept here face down. The contents of your extra deck are private knowledge, viewable only by you and teammates in team play. 2. Exile zones. Cards that are removed from play through specific card effects are sent to one of these zones. Face up exile, FU exile. Cards placed here are publicly visible to all players. Face down exile, FD exile. Cards placed here are kept private and are stacked physically on top of your FU exile. The contents of your FD exile is secret knowledge, where the FD exile is limited to only card effects allowing any player access to its information, or abilities to manipulate for further use as a secondary deck. Chaos zone. This is a central shared game area located between all players' realms. Chaos card spells are played into this zone. Any chaos spell in the chaos zone has a global effect, meaning it affects all players on the field. Only one chaos spell may be in play in the chaos zone at any given time. Chaos spells cannot have the bluff, instant, infinite, or equip subtypes unless they are of the torment card typing. See trace information. Torment creatures with the trace chaos cannot be placed into the chaos zone except by ability or card effect. 1.5 Card anatomy. Creatures. Understanding the different parts of a creature card is essential for playing effectively. NTK and def. These numerical values indicate the creature's attack and defense power, respectively, which are used during combat. Blood creatures may have a secondary ATK and def value specifically for use when they are in the blood realm. Power levels, these are visually represented by blue orbs on the card. The number of blue orbs indicates the creature's power level, which is a key component for calculating sacrifice costs when conjuring certain creatures. Attributes, these are keywords, e.g., fire, water, dark, blood, fear, that categorize the creature and can influence how other cards interact with it. Many attributes have specific rule implications or are referenced by card effects. Descriptor. This indicates whether the creature is a vanilla creature, meaning it has no special effect text, or an effect creature, meaning it has special abilities described in its text box. Creature type. This is a broader category for the creature, e.g., warrior, dragon, beast, insect. Creature types can be referenced by other card effects. Effect text. If the creature is an effect creature, this is the area where its special abilities and rules are described. Chapter 2. How to play, the turn structure and basic actions. This chapter explains the sequence of a game, from starting the match to taking actions within a player's turn, including how actions are resolved. 2.1. Beginning the game before any cards are played. Follow these steps to set up the game. 1. Determine who goes first. For 2-player games, players can roll a die or flip a coin. The player with the higher result goes first. For 3+ player games, the first player is determined randomly. 2. Shuffle primary decks. Each player thoroughly shuffles their primary deck. For fairness, players should present their shuffled deck to an opponent for an optional cut before placing it in their deck zone. 3. Draw opening hand. The number of cards drawn for the starting hand is determined by the game format's minimum deck size using the following formula. Minimum deck size, minus 10e, y plus 1 equal to starting hand size. For example, in casual mode, minimum deck size 30. Players draw 30 divided by 10, plus 1 equal to 3 plus 1 equal to 4 cards. Mulligan. Optional. If a player is dissatisfied with their opening hand, they may perform a mulligan. This involves shuffling any number of cards from their current hand back into their primary deck, and then drawing a new hand. First mulligan. For the very first mulligan in a game, you draw the same number of cards you shuffled back into your deck. There is no cost for this first mulligan. Subsequent mulligans. For any further mulligans performed after the first one, you draw the same number of cards you shuffled back into your deck, minus 1. This means each subsequent mulligan effectively reduces the size of your new hand by 1 card. You can perform a mulligan any number of times until you are satisfied with your hand or choose to stop. 2.2 Phases of a turn. A turn in Chaos Ensuming follows a strict sequence of 3 main phases. Only the active player, the player whose turn it is, performs actions during most of these phases. First Genesis phase, the main phase for playing cards. 1. Beginning of turn effects that trigger at the start of the turn will activate now. 2. During the Genesis phase, the active player can perform various actions in any order they choose, unless a card effect states otherwise. Normal conjure or set a creature once per turn. You may perform a normal conjure, play a creature face up, or set play a creature face down into an empty slot on your main field or blood realm. Non-blood creatures are typically played to the main field. If you play a creature face up, you must declare if it is in ATK, attack position, or defense position. Blood creatures are typically played to the blood realm. They are always played in ATK position in the blood realm. See 3.1 for detailed normal conjuring rules, including sacrifice mechanics. Unique conjure. Or set a creature, you may perform unique conjuring any number of times during your Genesis phase, provided you meet the costs and conditions. See 3.2 for detailed unique conjuring rules, including forsake, evoke, and evolution. And cast or set a spell. You may play spell cards from your hand zone by casting them playing face up, or setting them playing face down into an empty slot in your spell zone. This can be done any number of times. But to activate effects, you may activate the effects of cards you control that have activated abilities any number of times, provided you meet their costs and conditions. Done change creature position. Once per creature, you may switch a creature on your main field between ATK and def position. Creatures in the blood realm typically remain in ATK position unless a card effect states otherwise. Rearrange face-down cards. You may rearrange the physical placement of face-down cards within their respective zones. This action is not considered an instant action. Second combat phase, where battles occur. This phase is dedicated to attacking your opponent and their creatures. The active player declares attacks, and the opponent declares defenses. See Chapter 4 for detailed combat mechanics. Third ending phase, wrapping up your turn. 1. Draw a card. The active player performs the action of drawing one card from their deck zone. This is a declared action. Special rule for first turn. On the very first turn of the game, all players, not just the active player, perform the action of drawing one card during this step. However, only the active player then proceeds to the hand limit check. 2. Hand limit check. The active player must now check their hand zone. If they have more than 7 cards in their hand zone, they must choose and discard cards until they have exactly 7 cards. If a creature card is discarded this way, it is referred to as descent. 3. End of turn effects that trigger at the end of the turn will activate now. 4. Once all steps of the ending phase are complete, the active player's turn ends and the next player's turn begins. Playing, setting, activating, and resolving actions, the Satyr Concourse. When you wish to perform a declared action like playing a card, setting a card, or activating an effect, it interacts with the Satyr Concourse. The Satyr Concourse is a fundamental system in Chaos Ensuming that determines the precise order in which actions and events resolve. 1. Steps for performing a declared action. When declare action, the active player verbally declares which card they are playing, setting, or which effect they are activating. This declared action is now placed on the Satyr Concourse. When a player response window, starting with the opponent directly to the active player's left and proceeding clockwise in multiplayer. Each player gets an opportunity to respond to the declared action by playing an instant spell or activating an instant effect. Any responses are added on top of the current action on the Satyr Concourse. And pay costs. The active player then pays any required costs for their declared action, e.g., sacrificing creatures, paying life points, discarding cards. Cost payment fallout. If, when costs are due to be paid, step 3, the active player cannot fully fulfill the declared actions. Costs, e.g., due to a previous response removing resources, that action is immediately removed from the Satyr Concourse and does not resolve. Any card associated with that action, e.g., a spell card being cast, is sent to its owner's grave zone. However, any responses that were already successfully placed onto the Satyr Concourse above that action remain on the Satyr Concourse and will resolve normally, provided they are not dependent on the fizzled action. Player response window. Again, after costs are paid, another round of response opportunities occurs, starting with the opponent to the active player's left. In resolution check. If the declared action has not been negated by any responses on the Satyr Concourse, it successfully resolves. If the action was playing a creature or a bluff spell, the player declares if it is in ATK attack position or def defense position when it enters the field. If the action was negated, the card typically goes to the grave zone, and its intended function does not occur. Wire response window final. After the action successfully resolves, a final round of response opportunities occurs, starting with the opponent to the active player's left. 2. Responding, and the Satyr flow explained. Action is initiated or triggered, it creates a layer on the Satyr. Unplayers then have opportunities to respond to that action by playing instant cards or activating instant effects. Each response creates a new layer on top of the previous one. The Satyr Concourse resolves through a process known as Satyr flow, operating on a last-in, first-out LIFO order. This means that the most recently added action or response to the Satyr Concourse is the first to resolve. Once the topmost action resolves, the next action beneath it resolves, and so on, until the Satyr Concourse is empty. Simultaneous triggered actions. If multiple triggered actions become eligible to activate at the same time, e.g., from a single event like a creature being killed or at the start end of a phase, the active player chooses the order in which their triggered actions are placed onto the Satyr Concourse. After the active player has placed all their eligible triggered actions, each non-active player, in turn order, starting with the player to the active player's left, then places their eligible triggered actions onto the Satyr Concourse in any order they choose. The most recently placed triggered action will resolve first. One example, player A plays a creature. Player B plays an instant spell to negate it. Player A plays an instant spell to negate player B's instant spell. Satyr Concourse, creature play, bottom. Satyr Concourse, player B's negate middle, creature play bottom. Satyr Concourse, player A's negate top, player B's negate middle, creature play bottom. Resolution Satyr Flow, player A's negate resolves first. Then player B's negate resolves but is negated. Then the creature play resolves as it wasn't successfully negated. 3. Negations. Negations. Some cards or effects have the ability to negate an action. When an action is successfully negated, its resulting function does not occur. The card involved in the negated action is typically sent to the grave zone. Chapter 3, Creatures and Spells, Your Arsenal. This chapter details the various ways to bring your cards into play and explains their fundamental characteristics and interactions. Conjuring creatures, bringing them to the field. Creatures can be brought into play through normal conjuring or unique conjuring. 1. Normal conjuring. You can perform a normal conjure once per turn during your Genesis phase into an empty slot on your active playing field. Non-blood creatures are normally conjured to the main. Blood creatures are normally conjured to the blood realm. Sacrifice mechanic. Many creatures require you to sacrifice, send to your grave zone other creatures you control as a cost to normal conjure them. Creatures with power level 1 to 4 do not require any sacrifices. Creatures with power level 5 require the sacrifice of one in-play creature. Creatures with power level 6 require the sacrifice of 2 in-play creatures. Creatures with power level 7 require the sacrifice of 3 in-play creatures. Special rule for blood creatures. For blood creatures with a power level of 5 or higher that only have the blood attribute and no other creature attributes, at least one of the creatures sacrificed to normal conjure them must also have the blood attribute or must have been in the blood realm when it was sacrificed. You can only sacrifice creatures that you control, i.e., are on your side of the field. And sacrificed creatures are sent to your grave zone immediately before the new creature takes its slot on the field. 3.2. Unique conjuring. Unique conjuring methods allow you to bring creatures into play through special means, often from the extra deck, and can be performed any number of times during your Genesis phase, provided you meet the specific costs and conditions for each method. Forsake. This is a specialized and powerful method to bring specific creatures from your extra deck into play by forsaking, relinquishing control of creatures from your main field or blood realm. Cost. Power structure. The forsake creature you intend to summon will have a visual representation of its power structure, typically depicted by a series of 6 levels or orbs. Blue orb requirement. The total count of blue orbs within the forsake creature's power structure determines the power level of one creature you must forsake from your field. The power level of this forsaken creature must exactly match the total count of blue orbs. This total also represents the power level of the forsake card itself. Blank orb requirements. Consecutive groups of blank orbs within the power structure require you to forsake additional creatures. For each such group, you must forsake one creature whose power level is equal to the number of orbs in that specific blank group. All required creatures are forsaken simultaneously to fulfill the cost of the forsake unique conjure. Descent mechanic. When creatures are forsaken as a cost, they move directly from your play area, main field, or blood realm to their owner's grave zone. Importantly, descent is a specific mechanic and does not trigger other actions or effects that rely on creatures being killed or cracked. Realm placement. By default, forsake creatures with the blood attribute will enter play in your blood realm. Forsake creatures without the blood attribute will enter play in your main field. Corrupt action. The corrupt action is an optional action that can be performed during a forsake unique conjure to place the newly conjured creature into a zone that is typically uncommon for its attributes. Manual corrupt. This requires a specific attribute creature from a specific field to be forsaken to enable the corrupt action, e.g., forsaking a blood creature from your main field to conjure a blood creature to your main field. Passive ability corrupt. If one of the creatures you forsake to fulfill the cost has the corrupt ability as a passive effect, the unique conjured creature will automatically go to the same zone from which the forsaken creature departed, e.g., if you forsake a creature from your main field, the new creature will enter your main field, regardless of its primary realm placement rule. One important distinction: forsaking a creature does not count as sacrificing a creature. Effects that trigger upon sacrifice will not activate when a creature is forsaken. 2. Evoke conjuring. This unique conjuring method involves an in-play permanent, typically a creature, but can be other card types, leaving its current field. When it leaves, it loses any attached cards or effects. The permanent is then placed into the main field. Evoke conjuring is an exclusive method for blood creatures to move from the blood realm to the main field, apart from specific card effects that might allow such movement. 3. Evolution. Some creatures have the ability to evolve from other cards. When a creature evolves, it typically involves putting an existing card which must be in play on your field into its owner's grave zone. The evolving card then takes its place. Evolution does not count as sacrificing a creature. 3.3 Playing spells. Spells are played from your hand zone into your spell zone. Casting. Some spells can be played face up directly from your hand zone, referred to as casting. Setting. Other spells must first be placed face down in your spell zone, referred to as setting. These set spells are typically activated at a later time, often during your opponent's turn, e.g., shadow spells. 3.4 Card attributes, spells, and subtypes. Just like creatures, spells also have attributes and can have subtypes that influence their effects and how they are played. Light spells. These spells can only be played during your own turn, specifically before the combat phase begins. Shadow spells. These spells must first be set, placed face down in your spell zone. They are typically activated at the start of your opponent's turn. When activated this way, they are considered an instant action. Chaos spells. These spells are played into the shared chaos zone. When a chaos spell is in the chaos zone, it has a global effect, meaning it affects all players on the field. Only one chaos spell can be active in the chaos zone at any given time. Chaos spells cannot have the bluff, instant, infinite, or equip subtypes. Bluffs spells. These are a special subtype of spell that can be placed face down on your main field, as if they were a creature. When a bluff spell is attacked by an opponent's creature, its effect is triggered, it is flipped face up. Once revealed, bluff spells typically fizzle, meaning they are sent to the grave zone. While a bluff spell is face down on your field, it is treated as a creature for the purpose of sacrifice costs, e.g. if you need to sacrifice a creature to normal conjure another creature, a face-down bluff spell can be sacrificed. Instant spells. These spells are highly versatile and can be played at any time, even in response to other actions or effects. They can interrupt other actions on the Satyr concourse. Infinite spells. These spells, once played, remain on the field indefinitely. They will only leave play if a specific card effect removes them from the field. Equip spells. These spells are designed to attach to another card on the field, which could be a spell, a creature, a player, or even a zone, depending on the specific card. Equip spells remain in a slot in your spell realm. If the card they are equipped to leaves play, e.g., is sent to the grave zone or exile zone, the equip spell is also automatically sent to its owner's grave zone. 3.5 Effects. Activated, triggered, and static card effects are what make cards interact and change the game state. They typically fall into one of three categories. Activated effects. These are effects that a player chooses to activate by fulfilling specific costs, e.g., pay 10 life points to draw a card or sacrifice a creature to deal damage. The player controls when these effects are used. Triggered effects. These effects automatically activate when a specific action or condition occurs in the game, e.g., when this creature is killed, or when you draw a card. These effects occur without player choice, though players can still respond to them on the Satyr concourse. Static effects. These effects are continuously active and constantly affect the game state as long as the card with the effect remains in play, e.g., all your creatures gain plus 100 ATK, or opponent's creatures lose minus 50 def. They do not use the Satyr concourse as they are always on. Chapter 4, Combat, the Clash of Creatures. This chapter details the sequence of events within the combat phase where creatures engage in battle. 4.1 The combat phase steps. During the combat phase, the active player performs attacks and the opposing players declare defenses. The combat phase proceeds through the following specific steps. Attack step. The active player declares which of their creatures will attack. Only creatures that are in ATK attack position can be declared as attackers. For each attacking creature, the active player declares a target. Targets can be either an opposing player or an opposing creature. Blood Realm creatures. Creatures in your Blood Realm can only attack creatures located in your opponent's Blood Realm. Main field creatures. Creatures in your main field can attack creatures located in your opponent's main field. If your opponent has no creatures in their main field, your main field creatures can attack your opponent's life points directly. Response step. Starting with the opponent to the active player's left and proceeding clockwise in multiplayer, each opponent gets an opportunity to declare defending or blocking creatures against the declared attackers. Defending, opponent's Blood Realm creatures can be declared as defenders against attacking Blood Realm creatures. Typically, one defending creature is declared per attacker. In team play, multiple opponents may declare defending creatures against the same attacking creature. Blocking, opponents' Blood Realm creatures have a special ability to block attacking main field creatures. If a Blood Realm creature declares itself as a blocker against a main field attacker, the Blood Realm creature is immediately sacrificed, sent to its owner's grave zone, and the attack it blocked is entirely negated. It fails to deal damage or destroy its target. 2. Resolution step. Any face-down creatures that were successfully targeted and attacked during the attack step are now flipped face-up. If these creatures have flip effects that trigger when they are flipped face-up due to a retail attack, those effects activate now. AFI, damage step. This is where the ATK and def values of battling creatures are compared, and damage is dealt to creatures or players. Attacking a creature in defense position. If the attacked creature's def value is less than the attacking creature's ATK value, the attacked creature is killed, destroyed, and sent to its owner's grave zone. If the attacked creature's def value is equal to the attacking creature's ATK value, nothing happens to either creature. If the attacked creature's def value is greater than the attacking creature's ATK value, the difference between the def and ATK values is dealt as damage directly to the active player's life points. Attacking a creature in ATK attack position. If the attacked creature's ATK value is less than the attacking creature's ATK value, the attacked creature is killed, and its controller takes damage equal to the difference in ATK values. If the attacking creature's ATK value is less than the attacked creature's ATK value, the attacking creature is killed, and the active player takes damage equal to the difference in ATK values. If both creatures' ATK values are equal, both the attacking and attacked creatures are killed. Multiple defending creatures. If multiple defending creatures were declared against a single attacker, e.g. in team play, each defending creature takes the full ATK value of the attacker. Direct attacks. If an attacking creature was not blocked or defended, it deals its full ATK damage directly to the opponent's life points. End step. Any card effects that trigger specifically at the end of combat or after combat occur now. Chapter 5. Deck Building and Game Modes. This chapter details the rules for constructing your decks and the different ways you can play Chaos Ensuming. 5.1 Deck Components. Primary deck. This is your main deck, from which you draw cards during the game. It is kept face down in your deck zone, and its contents are not public knowledge to your opponent until revealed by game effects. Side deck. This is an optional deck of cards that you can exchange with cards in your primary deck between games, not rounds, during a match. The contents of your side deck are not public knowledge but are viewable by you, its owner. Extra deck. This is an optional deck that stores cards specifically designated for certain unique conjuring methods, such as forsake creatures. The cards in your extra deck are kept face down in your extra deck zone and are not public knowledge but are viewable by you, its owner. 5.2 Game Modes. Chaos Ensuming can be played in different official modes, each with its own rules for deck size and starting life points. Casual mode. Primary deck size, 30 to 40 cards. Starting life points, 5,000. Extra deck side deck size, a combined total of 0 to 15 cards. You can choose to have an extra deck, a side deck, or both, as long as their combined total does not exceed 15 cards. Fear cards. You are limited to a maximum of 1 fear card in your primary deck and a maximum of 2 fear cards in your side deck. Match format. Sets are typically played as the best of 3. Standard mode. Primary deck size, 60 to 80 cards. Starting life points, 10,000. Extra deck side deck size, a combined total of 0 to 30 cards. Fear cards. You are limited to a maximum of 1 fear card in your primary deck and a maximum of 2 fear cards in your side deck. Match format. Sets are typically played as the best of 3 games. 5.3 Rule Sets. In addition to game modes, you choose a rule set that dictates how many copies of a particular card you can have in your deck. Singleton. Under this rule set, your primary deck can contain only 1 copy of any given card, identified by its exact name. This rule set utilizes a specific singleton ban list of prohibited cards. Advanced. Under this rule set, your primary deck may contain up to 3 copies of any given card. This rule set utilizes a separate advanced ban list of prohibited cards. 5.4 Variants. Optional play styles. Chaos Ensuming also offers several optional variants that can alter the gameplay experience. These are typically agreed upon by players before a game begins. Currently defined variants: Chaos, Stones, Shields, Inferno, Nosferatu, Wild. Planned variants: Deck Draft TBA, Pack Draft TBA. Chapter 6: Advanced Attributes and Keywords. This chapter details specific rules for various card attributes and keywords that provide unique mechanics and interactions within the game. 6.1 Creature Attributes. 1. Blood. As previously mentioned, blood creatures must typically be conjured to your blood realm. For blood creatures with a power level of 5 or higher that only possess the blood attribute and no other creature attributes listed, if you perform a normal conjure, at least one of the creatures you sacrifice to fulfill their cost must either have the blood attribute itself or must have been in the blood realm when it was sacrificed. 2. Fear. Creatures with the fear attribute inherently possess 3 attributes simultaneously: fear plus 2 other specified attributes. Fear creatures cannot possess spell attributes, e.g., light, shadow, chaos, unless the card itself is a torment. Fear creatures are immune to effects caused by the In Fear ability. Fear creatures can be defeated in combat by creatures with the ability In Fear. They cannot be directly affected or removed from the field by the In Fear ability's effects. 3. Inherit. When an inherit creature is killed, destroyed, and sent to the grave zone through descent by another creature during combat or by a card effect, the creature that performed the killing action gains the inherit creature's effect. This gained effect typically lasts until the end of the turn or until the killing creature leaves the field, depending on the nature of the effect. 4. Ice, Inherit, and Thunder. These attributes are designated as being subject to strategic scarcity. This implies that there are generally fewer cards printed with the Ice and Thunder attributes, making them potentially rarer or more strategically significant. 6.2 Keywords and Abilities. Bloodlust. This is an activated ability. You can negate an attack by exiling a card from your grave zone. 2. Breath of Life. This card has a unique property. While it is in the grave zone, it is treated as both a spell card and a soul. This means it can interact with effects that target or count either spells or souls in the grave. 2. Chaul. When a creature with Chaul is conjured onto the field, it is treated as non-existent for a period of 3 turns. During this time, the slot it occupies on the field cannot be affected by any card effects. After 3 turns, it becomes a normal creature. IV. Circus. If a clown creature is conjured onto your field, all face-up creatures currently on your main field, including the newly conjured clown, if applicable, are immediately put face down in DF defense position. V. Creature Proof. A card with creature proof cannot be targeted by the effects of other creatures. It is immune to abilities that specify a target. Vi. Half-Life. A creature with half-life receives no damage from being attacked in combat. This means that even if its def or ATK is lower than the attacking creature's ATK, it will not be killed by combat damage, nor will it cause its controller to take damage from combat. 7. Inscription. This is an activated ability. You can exile this card face down from your hand or field to change the creature type of a target creature in play. Internment. This is an activated ability with a cost. You pay 1 soul to your opponent, meaning you move a soul card from your grave to your exile, and your opponent gains a soul for their purposes. Then you reveal the top card of your opponent's primary deck. If that revealed card is a creature that can be normal conjured, i.e. meets its sacrifice costs with creatures currently on your opponent's field, or has a power level of 1 to 4, it is immediately unique conjured to their field. Otherwise, if it cannot be normal conjured, it is added to their hand zone. X. Limit. This is a continuous effect. You must pay 1 soul per turn for this card, meaning you move 1 soul card from your grave to your exile during your ending phase. If you fail to pay this cost, the card with limit is exiled, removed from play. G. Plague. Creatures that are normal conjured or unique conjured during the combat phase have plague. This means they cannot attack during the turn they are brought to the field. Chwal. Repellent. This is an activated ability. You can exile this card from your grave zone to spiral, shuffle back into its owner's primary deck, a target insect creature in play. Swai. Exe. Spellproof. A card with spellproof cannot be targeted by spell cards. It is immune to spells that specify a target. Spirit's Rampage. This is an activated ability. You can discard X number of cards from your grave zone to create X number of 0 Zeroth Wind creature tokens on your field. Chapter 7. Terminology. This chapter provides definitions for specific terms used in Chaos Ensuming. 1. Declared actions. These are player-initiated declarations, such as playing a card, casting, setting, activating an effect, formally declaring an attack, drawing a card, shuffling a deck, or searching a deck. Declared actions follow the full multi-step resolution process of the Seder Concourse. 2. Triggered actions. These are effects that automatically activate when a specific game condition or occurrence is met, e.g., when this creature is killed. Triggered actions are placed onto the Seder Concourse when their trigger condition is met, and then follow the resolution process. 2. Bouncing a card. This term refers to the action of a card effect, sending a card from the field back to its owner's hand zone. 2. Cracked. This term refers specifically to a spell card or a torment card being sent from the field to its owner's grave zone, usually due to a card effect or if it fizzles. I for descent, the act of a creature card being discarded from your hand zone to your grave zone, usually due to exceeding the hand limit at the end of a turn. V events, an occurrence where two or more actions declared or triggered are layered onto the Seder Concourse in reactive succession, forming a single resolution instance. This term describes the collective interaction and resolution of such responsive actions. Vi. Exiled. This refers to a card being removed from play and placed into its owner's exile zone, either face up or face down, usually due to a specific card effect. Cards in exile are generally not accessible unless an effect specifically allows it. 7. Fu exile, face up exile, an exile zone where cards are placed face up and are publicly visible. 7. FD exile, face down exile, an exile zone where cards are placed face down and are private knowledge to the owner, physically stacked atop the FU exile. Involuntary event, an occurrence within the Seder Concourse primarily driven by effects triggering, e.g., when kilt abilities rather than direct player declaration. These are automated actions that layer upon the Seder Concourse without requiring active player choice beyond the initial trigger condition. Kill kilt. This term refers specifically to a creature card or a torment card being sent from the field to its owner's grave zone, typically as a result of combat damage or a card effect that destroys it. She mulligan, the process of shuffling cards from your hand back into your primary deck at the start of the game to draw a new hand. Shwai. Seder flow, the process by which the Seder Concourse resolves actions and events, operating on a last in, first out, LIFO order. Spiral. This term describes the effect of shuffling a target card into its owner's primary deck. This can apply to cards from any zone, hand, grave, field, exile, unless specified by the card effect. Grace of Metanoia, a special counter to an opponent's Metanoia, allowing you and others in multiplayer to also use your Metanoia without losing your one-time use. XV, Metanoia. This is a grace you can use once per game. When you declare it, you clear your entire active playing field, all your cards in play, also called permanents, and draw a fresh hand, essentially getting a reset. While normally unnegatable, it's a risky move, as it costs you all your current field presence. CI, Second Seder Concourse, a special, automatic resolution mode that kicks in if the game gets too complicated, lots of actions, or repeating loops. It simplifies things and changes how some effects, like Metanoia, work. Seder Concourse, summary, pros, and cons for the discerning. Summary of the Seder Concourse. The Seder Concourse is Chaos Ensuming's core resolution system, operating on a last-in, first-out LIFO principle, referred to as Seder flow. It's a central zone where all actions are placed and resolved. Key features: actions, divided into two types. Declared actions, player-initiated moves like playing, setting cards, activating effects, declaring attacks, drawing a card, shuffling a deck, or searching a deck. These follow a detailed multi-step resolution process. Triggered actions, automated effects that activate when a game condition is met. These are placed on the concourse when triggered. Multi-step resolution for declared actions. Declared actions have specific, distinct player response windows at 3 points. 1. After the action is declared. 2. After its costs are paid. 3. After it successfully resolves. Cost payment fallout. Costs for declared actions are paid after the initial response window. If, due to responses, the player can no longer meet the cost, the action fizzles is removed without effect, but any responses already layered above it still resolve. Events and involuntary events. Events are defined as occurrences where two or more actions are layered in reactive succession. Involuntary events specifically refer to groups of automated triggered effects. Simultaneous triggered actions order. A clear rule dictates how multiple triggered actions activating at the same time are ordered on the concourse Active player chooses their triggers first, then non-active players in turn order. First, the Satyr Concourse system, main first and expedited second resolution. The Satyr Concourse is the core resolution system in Chaos Ensuming, functioning as a unified stack for all game actions. It operates on a last-in, first-out LIFO principle, known as Satyr flow. The game features a primary main Satyr Concourse and, in situations of extreme complexity or looping, can temporarily transition to a specialized second Satyr Concourse for expedited automated resolution. First, the main first Satyr Concourse, core resolution. The main Satyr Concourse is where the vast majority of game actions are declared, respond to one another, and resolve. A. Core principles. 1. Unified LIFO stack. All declared actions and triggered actions are placed onto a single, unified concourse. Actions resolve one by one, with the most recently added action resolving first. 2. Action types. Declared actions, player-initiated actions. Triggered actions, automated effects that activate when a game condition is met. These are automatically placed onto the concourse. Static actions echo, a unique type of lingering effect. These reside uniquely on the Satyr Concourse but do not resolve and empty in the standard LIFO fashion. They remain active until their default duration, or indefinitely if a card with a demise ability is in play. Their presence affects game state. General static effects, these are continuously active, constantly affect the game state while the card is in play, and do not use the Satyr Concourse for resolution or placement. B. Player response windows. For declared actions, players have opportunities to respond at specific points. 1. After the action is declared. 2. After all costs for the action are paid. 3. After the action successfully resolves and its effects are applied. Responses are added to the top of the concourse. C. Multiplayer priority system. Determining who can act next in a multiplayer game is precise. 1. Overall game flow. The general flow of player turns and game phases proceeds clockwise around the table, starting from the first player. 2. Response opportunity. When an action is placed onto the Satyr Concourse, or a player response window opens, the opportunity to add the next action response begins with the player immediately to the left of the player who just added the last action or initiated the window. This opportunity then passes sequentially around the table, player by player, to the left. 3. Passing priority. A player may pass their opportunity to act. If all players consecutively pass, the topmost action on the concourse resolves. If the concourse is empty, the current phase step ends. 4. First act principle. Within their designated opportunity, the player who first clearly declares their action and physically places the corresponding cards onto the playing area gains priority to add their action to the concourse. 5. Instant precedence. An instant action, when declared by a player with a current opportunity, takes precedence over any non-instant actions that might have been declared simultaneously by others without the current opportunity. 6. Tie-breaking for simultaneous declarations. For true ties where multiple players declare actions at the exact same moment. Players roll a die. The player closest to the chosen number gains. Tournament setting. Film evidence definitively resolves the dispute. D. Effect resolution rules. Fizzling effects. An effect will fizzle if its continued resolution explicitly requires the physical presence of the card that initiated it, and that card is removed from the field before the effect resolves. Costs are still paid. Persistent effects. These effects, once on the concourse, are self-contained and will fully resolve even if their initiating card leaves the field, unless the effect text states otherwise. Target invalidity immunities. If an entity cannot be affected, any effect attempting to target or affect it is voided from being affected. The effect itself resolves, but its application to that specific entity is negated. E. Chaos Zone interactions. Only one Chaos spell can be active in the Chaos Zone at a time. If a new Chaos spell is played into the Chaos Zone, the previously active Chaos spell is immediately destroyed. Creatures with the Chaos trace are not considered Chaos spells unless they are specifically played into the Chaos Zone to trigger their effect. When a Chaos spell is removed from play, its default destination is either the Chaos deck or the deck's grave zone from which it came, unless an effect dictates otherwise. The second expedited Satyr Concourse, crisis resolution. The second Satyr Concourse is a specialized automated resolution system designed to manage and break situations of extreme concourse complexity or semi-infinite loops. A. Breaking point trigger conditions. The second Seder concourse is triggered if any of the following conditions are met on the main Seder concourse. 1. Excessive volume of responses. If, at any point within a single-player response window, the total number of actions. Responses layered onto the concourse reaches 20 or more, regardless of the number of players contributing to those responses. Detected semi-infinite loop circumventing standard loop protection. If a sequence of actions effects involving 2 or more cards repeats identically for 4 or more consecutive cycles without any player choosing to break the loop or any observable change in public game state, effectively circumventing the standard third trigger negation rule for true infinite loops. Rule on infinite loops. True infinite loops are illegal in the game and are automatically negated after their third identical trigger. The semi-infinite conditions describe situations that break or circumvent this standard protection. Action upon detection. Upon detection of this semi-infinite loop, game steps are retracted as far as possible to the most recent accountable action that occurred before the loop began its fourth repetition. From this retrenched point, the second Seder concourse is immediately begun. 3. Specific nested retriggering loop without state change. If a specific card's self-repeating effect that normally repeats a maximum of 3 times and then stops due to the standard loop rule is then re-triggered by another card twice more for a total of 2 additional sets of 3 repetitions, meaning 9 or more total activations for that sequence. After the initial 3 in response to its third trigger, and this re-triggering process involves multiple players, and there is no observable change in the public game state during these re-triggering cycles. 1 into action upon detection. Upon detection of this specific nested loop, game steps are retracted as far as possible to the most recent accountable action that occurred before the loop began its excessive retriggering. From this retrenched point, the second Seder concourse is immediately begun. In public game state is defined in the rulebook under Echo. B. Exact contents and function. When the breaking point is reached, the second Seder concourse activates as follows. 1. Initial state reset and general static effect re-evaluation pass. If a loop caused the trigger, game steps are retracted as described above. An immediate non-interactive static effect re-evaluation pass occurs. All general static effects are re-evaluated and applied to the current game state. Static effects are only allowed to interact within the second concourse's context if they are not interactive within the first main concourse. 2. Static action, echo, purge, plus immediately following the static effect re-to-evaluation pass, all currently active static action echoes are forcibly removed from the Seder concourse. This ensures a clean slate and gets rid of the most likely to offend cards contributing to repeating issues. 3. Scope of processing. The second Seder concourse then assumes control and processes all remaining actions present on the Seder concourse, starting from the most recent response downwards, regardless of the specific action or effect type. 4. Player agency suspension. Shift of voluntary to involuntary. While both player-declared and automatically triggered actions can contribute to forming the pattern that triggers the second concourse, once the second concourse is active, its resolution becomes entirely involuntary and automated. Players cannot make any decisions, declare new voluntary actions, or add any responses whatsoever during the entire resolution. Phase of the second Seder concourse, until it completely clears and control returns to the main Seder concourse. The purpose is to prevent players from continuing repetitions. C. The specific priority shift. On the second Seder concourse, the priority more towards time rather than to what triggered first simply means that the system abandons the complex, time-rigorous resolution process of the main Seder concourse, LEFO, player choice, TUM order priority, simultaneous tie-breaking that contributed to the semi-infinite loop. Actions on the second Seder concourse will resolve deterministically and non-interactively to achieve resolution and break the problematic pattern, without further consideration for the main concourse's usual priority rules. D. Transition logic, entry and exit. 1. Entry, main concourse freezes. When the second Seder concourse is triggered, the main Seder concourse is frozen. Its contents are paused in place. 2. Exit, return to main concourse. Once the second Seder concourse has completely emptied, all its actions have resolved and its purpose is fulfilled. Replacement echo, a single new static action echo, is immediately placed onto the main Seder concourse. This serves as a system consequence for entering the expedited resolution state and is intended to replace any lost echo, causing a different pattern in the game state to ensure the original problematic loop is not immediately reestablished. Main concourse unfreezes and fizzles breaks. The main Satyr concourse is then unfrozen. Any actions on the main concourse that constitute breaks will immediately fizzle. Resumption after these invalid breaks fizzle. The remaining end of the first concourse resolves according to its standard LIFO rules, picking up its normal processing. Any new triggered actions generated during the second Satyr concourse's resolution and held in a pending queue would then be added to the main Satyr concourse at this point, followed by the reopening of player response windows. Disqualification for intentional abuse. If a player or players, after the second Satyr concourse has activated and completed, voluntarily and intentionally, replays the exact same loop that caused a previous break in the game and triggers the second Satyr concourse again, that player or players are immediately removed from the game under disqualification grounds. This is considered an illegal action, explicitly designed to cause issues for event holders and waste other players' time. Pros of the Satyr Concourse, a system for the new age. The Satyr Concourse is designed to elevate the traditional trading card game experience, offering a level of sophistication and clarity that discerning players will appreciate. Unparalleled strategic depth and constant engagement. The granularity of the Satyr Concourse means that almost every fundamental game operation, from playing a card to the act of drawing and shuffling, becomes a responsive action. This creates a truly dynamic battlefield where players are constantly engaged, requiring sharp tactical foresight and the ability to weave complex, reactive sequences. For intelligent players, this translates into a richer, more mentally stimulating game, rather than periods of passive waiting. Precision, consistency, and elimination of ambiguity, Chaos Ensuming prioritizes an explicit and highly structured resolution system. The Satyr Concourse's multi-step resolution for declared actions, with clearly defined player response windows, provides a level of clarity that minimizes guesswork and avoids the errata-ridden frustrations of older games. Rules are clear, consistent, and designed to cover complex interactions head-on, ensuring that skilled play is rewarded by predictable outcomes. Rewarding tactical foresight through unique mechanics, the cost payment fallout rule introduces a unique strategic layer where players can directly impact an opponent's ability to complete an action by disrupting their resources after the initial declaration but before costs are paid. This demands a higher degree of predictive play and resource management, offering a fresh challenge and rewarding deep understanding of game flow. A truly new age approach to interaction, the Satyr Concourse fundamentally redefines interaction points within a TCG. By making actions traditionally considered non-interactive subject to responses, Chaos Ensuming invites players to think beyond established paradigms, fostering innovative strategies and unexpected turnarounds that break from the slow, predictable rhythms of traditional games. This is a game for those ready to embrace a higher degree of reactive play. Cons of the Satyr Concourse, the path to mastery. While designed for sophistication, the Satyr Concourse presents certain challenges, which for the dedicated and intelligent player serve as a path to true mastery. Demanding initial learning curve. The depth and granularity of the Satyr Concourse, with its explicit multi-step resolution and new interaction points, requires a committed investment to fully grasp. This is not a casual system, but one that rewards the intellectual curiosity of players seeking a deeply layered tactical experience. Intensity over speed, the constant potential for interaction, and the precision required in navigating the concourse mean that gameplay can be intensely strategic rather than simply fast-paced. Every decision point is significant, which contributes to a thoughtful, deliberate pace that prioritizes strategic depth over raw speed, appealing to those who relish complex problem-solving. Challenging established intuitions. For players deeply ingrained in older TCG mechanics, the paradigm shifts introduced by the Satyr Concourse, such as responding to drawing or shuffling, may initially feel counterintuitive. However, this challenge is precisely what invites a deeper understanding of game design and rewards players willing to evolve their strategic thinking. Strategic density. The system's robustness means that moments of simultaneous triggered actions or complex concourse layering can be strategically dense. While rules are clear, navigating these moments requires a high degree of mental organization and careful consideration, which is a feature for those who crave a truly sophisticated challenge. Chaos Ensuming TCG, Torment Cards, and the Trace System, Comprehensive Static Actions. In Chaos Ensuming TCG, Torment Cards represent a unique and powerful card type, functioning simultaneously as both creatures and spells. This dual nature is fundamental to their design and their strategic role within the game. Torment cards also uniquely feature an archetypal trace system. Within this system, fear cards are considered the kings of the traces, signifying their paramount influence or power within this specific subset. The full hierarchy of these archetypes is as follows: trace archetypes, static actions, and torment cards. A core mechanic of all trace archetypes is the static action, also known as the echo. Unlike normal actions, a static action represents a lingering memory of a committed action that resides uniquely on the Satyr concourse. Triggering static actions. Static actions are triggered in two primary ways: by the conjure, unique conjure evolution, or devolution, bringing a torment card into play; by other cards, specifically those with the demise ability. These triggers occur without causing a conjure of any type: demise ability activation and duration. The demise ability can only be activated once while a card possessing it is in play on its field. Once activated, the effect of demise ability remains active and ongoing until that specific card is moved from its current zone, realm. Static action, echo, duration, and resilience. By default, if a trace has been placed into play and its static action, echo, triggered, this static action remains active on the Satyr concourse until the end of the next player's turn. However, the demise ability fundamentally alters this. Plus, as long as a creature or card with the demise ability is in play, the static action, echo, remains active. Crucially, these static actions are unaffected by the Satyr concourse's normal resolution process. This grants demise-sustained static actions significant resilience, as they do not resolve and empty from the concourse in the standard last in, first out, LIFO fashion. This makes them immune to many typical concourse-based responses that rely on actions resolving, interaction, and counterplay. While demise-sustained static actions, echoes, are immune to direct concourse-based resolution and emptying, other cards can still interact with them. Negating the initial trigger, cards with abilities like negate conjure or bounce upon conjure can be applied to the initial triggering action that causes the static action, echo, to appear on the concourse, whether it's a torment card's conjure, evolution, devolution, or the activation of a demise ability, potentially preventing its lingering state. Premature removal while a static action, echo, is active on the Satyr concourse. Effects such as kill or exile to, FD exile or FU exile, or spiral upon conjure may be used to remove this lingering action from play prematurely. This is provided these effects do not rely on the Satyr concourse's standard resolution process for their application against a demise-sustained static action. Fear card vulnerability, a significant aspect of counterplay, revolves around fear cards. While a static action, echo, is active, fear cards become vulnerable to cards possessing the infear ability. This unique interaction allows for strategic targeting and removal of powerful fear cards when the lingering influence of a static action is present. This adds a dynamic layer of counterplay against the insidious effects of trace torments. Trace archetypes and torment card design. The trace archetypes: brood, grave, hands, avow, excess, sin, chaos, agony, war, void, deck, soul, death, broken, and division are specifically designed to divide torment cards by the different areas of the game that these specific cards affect. They are used to ascribe cards that possess highly unique or particularly potent effects. Due to this fact, many torment cards will frequently be subject to bans in official play and subsequently offered an errata to their effect. This strategic decision by the game's designers ensures that the game can remain in rotation and maintain its meta balance without being overly disrupted by these powerful yet carefully managed effects. General torment card mechanics. As hybrid cards, torment cards inherently combine attributes and properties of both creatures and spells. Possessing the average attributes of either card type and capable of comprising any number of possible combinations for nearly any possible kind of new card to be created, torment cards offer unparalleled versatility for in-game meta resolution. They participate in the Satyr concourse for action resolution like other cards, while details for each specific trace archetype, brood, grave, etc., are extensive and define their individual conceptual focus, mechanical characteristics, and lore integration. The overarching design principle is to deliver unique and impactful effects that are carefully balanced by their classification as torment cards, including the strategic interaction with their static action mechanics. The metanoia and grace of metanoia rule set. These actions represent fundamental, inherent mechanics within the game, operating over the Satyr concourse rather than layering within it, which grants them immediate and unnegatable resolution in most circumstances. First, the metanoia action, type static action, an inherent, unnegatable, fundamental action available to every player, not a card. Usage, once per game, per player. Declaration timing, a player can declare metanoia during any player response window or their action declaration window when there is at least one action currently layered on the Satyr concourse. Core characteristics and immediate resolution. Operates over the concourse. Upon its declaration, metanoia does not add a new layer to the Satyr concourse's LIFO stack. Instead, it immediately initiates its resolution sequence, taking precedence over whatever is currently on the concourse. It does not wait for other actions to resolve. Unnegatable standard play. In standard gameplay, once declared, the metanoia action cannot be negated. Its effects are unavoidable. Trigger for immediate resolution. Its declaration itself is the trigger for its effects to begin resolving. Effects upon inevitable resolution, immediate execution, when the metanoia action is declared. 1. Full removal of resources, admittance of loss. The player declaring metanoia fully removes all resources under their influence. This means all cards that the metanoia player controls or owns across all play zones are immediately removed from play. This includes hand zone, grave zone, face-up exile zone, face-down exile zone, active playing field creatures supports, passive playing field landmarks, structures, any cards attached to other cards if owned by the metanoia player. The deck zone remains intact. Direct concourse impact. Crucially, any of the metanoia player's own declared actions or triggered actions currently layered on the Satyr concourse are immediately removed from the concourse. They fizzle or are directly extracted as their source, the card player's influence, vanishes. This signifies the admittance of loss within the Satyr concourse by the player removing their own participation from the current stack. 2. New hand. The metanoia player shuffles their deck zone and draws a new hand, e.g. 5 cards. Second, the grace of metanoia. Type, static answer, an inherent, unnegatable, fundamental action available to every player, not a card. It operates over the Satyr concourse. Usage can be declared by any player except the player who just declared metanoia, in response to an opponent's metanoia declaration. Restriction, a single player cannot declare grace of metanoia multiple times in immediate succession, i.e. in response to the same metanoia declaration or immediately after their own grace resolved. Declaration timing and immediate resolution. Grace of metanoia can only be declared during the player response window, immediately following an opponent's declaration of metanoia. Its declaration immediately initiates its resolution, taking precedence over metanoia itself. Effects upon inevitable resolution, immediate execution, when grace of metanoia is declared. Temporary metanoia grant. The player who declared metanoia the target of this grace, and any other opposing players in a multiplayer game, are temporarily granted the ability to use metanoia without expending their one-time per game use of metanoia until the end of their next turn. This effect is applied immediately, before the initial metanoia action that grace responded to resolves its effects. Third interaction flow on the Satyr concourse. Here's a typical sequence of how these static actions resolve in relation to the Satyr concourse. 1. Standard action declared, an opponent player A declares an action, e.g. plays a card. It layers onto the Satyr concourse. 2. Metanoia declared, the current player, player B, facing a dire situation on the concourse, declares metanoia. Simultaneous interruption. This declaration of metanoia triggers an immediate player response window for static actions that operate over the concourse, specifically for grace of metanoia. 3. Grace of metanoia response window. Another player, player A or player C in a multiplayer game, may immediately declare grace of metanoia in response to player B's metanoia. If declared, grace of metanoia resolves first and immediately. Grace of metanoia resolves. Player B and potentially player C is granted the temporary metanoia usage. 4. Metanoia resolves after the grace of metanoia response window, and if grace was declared after its effects. Player B's metanoia resolves immediately. Player B's entire realm, all cards in their zones except their deck, is removed from play. Crucially, all of Player B's declared actions or triggered actions currently layered on the Satyr concourse are immediately removed from the concourse. Player B draws a new hand. 5. Normal Satyr concourse resumes. After metanoia has fully resolved, the game returns to the standard Satyr concourse. Any remaining actions on the Satyr concourse, like Player A's initial action 10, or actions from other players, will continue to resolve according to the normal Litho-Satyr flow. The metanoia player's contribution to that stack is simply gone. 4th interaction with the second Satyr concourse. The second Satyr concourse represents a specific, highly problematic state where the game's core issues are being addressed, and the rules of engagement for metanoia are altered. 1. When a second Satyr concourse is triggered, metanoia and grace of metanoia are no longer played over the Satyr concourse. Instead, they are played upon the Satyr concourse as static effects and are affected to resolve issues within its layering. This means that during a second Satyr concourse, a metanoia action can be negated by appropriate countering effects, just like any other action that would normally be negated. No usage consumption. If a player's metanoia is negated during a second Satyr concourse, that player's one-time per game metanoia usage is not consumed. They can still use metanoia later after the second Satyr concourse ends, assuming they haven't used it already in standard play or successfully during the second Satyr concourse. Limited attempts. Despite the non-consumption, metanoia can only be called once during the second Satyr concourse per player. This prevents players from repeatedly attempting a reset within the same crisis. Thematic implication of negation. The negation of metanoia during a second Satyr concourse carries profound thematic weight. It signifies a refusal by other players to allow that player to simply withdraw or reset, acting as an implicit accusation that the metanoia player's presence or actions are at the root of the issues the second Satyr concourse is attempting to resolve, a public admission of their perceived culpability. A note on gameplay to the community. In this game, players may find that when a situation spirals, a moment of profound personal surrender, a metanoia, can bring about a fresh beginning. This act, unhindered by common interference, allows one to clear their path and begin anew. Yet, when the game enters a more trying phase, a second concourse where deep-seated troubles come to light, that very desire to withdraw might meet with contention. Should others choose to impede this personal reset, it is not simply a denial, but a silent testament to the understanding that one's presence or past choices are inextricably linked to the unfolding difficulties. This dynamic cultivates not just shrewd play, but a discerning spirit among players. It fosters an environment where the choice to offer a grace of metanoia is a genuine act of communal generosity, extending a lifeline without demanding a permanent cost. Such interactions encourage a broader view of the competitive landscape, where one can contribute to balance and shared experience, moving beyond immediate triumph to a more profound engagement with the game's unfolding narrative. This approach fosters a community where wisdom guides action and where strategic depth is enriched by the human element of understanding and forbearance, creating a richer, more engaging journey for all involved.